Thank you, members. Thank you. I welcome everyone to the extraordinary full council meeting, including members, officers and any members of the public who may be attending remotely. Please be advised that the meeting will be live streamed and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the council's data retention policy, and the recording of the meeting may be added to the council's website. The following staff are in attendance: Larissa Reid, Chief Executive; Steph Curtis, Policy and Communities Manager; Joe Millard, Democratic and Electoral Services Manager; Billy Attaway, who did a fantastic job; Bringing the Mason, Senior Democratic Services Officer; and Claudette Valmont, the Head of Legal Services, is attending remotely. Agenda item 1, there is no scheduled test of the fire alarm, and if the alarm does sound, please leave the building quickly using the doors signed as fire escapes and assemble in the car park and await instructions. If anyone in attendance that might require assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known. Thank you, Councillor. I invite the Chief Executive to give apologies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have received apologies from Councillors Roger Clark, Simon Clark, James Hunt, Rich Lehman, Leanne Moore and Mark Tucker.
Are there any others? Thank you, members. Item 3, declarations of interest. Do members have any interest to declare? Thank you. So we swiftly go to item 4 on this packed agenda, local government review. The only item on the agenda this evening is the local government review. Someone's being quick tonight. I know there's football on, we won't be that quick. Please, can members confirm they've seen the report and the appendices? Great. Thank you, members. I invite the leader to introduce the report and propose the recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to set out the progress made to date in relation to local government reorganisation, and it sets out the options for Swale to continue in the process. The recommendations are to note the contents of the report and the work undertaken so far by Kent leaders and chief executives, and that the Council agree to remain part of the Kent programme, which is working with KPMG to produce a full business case for Model 3 and Model 4B for local government reorganisation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can I ask that if you have your mobile on, can you either turn it off or put it on silent, please? Thank you, members. I invite Councillor Ashley Wise to second and ask whether he wishes to speak now or reserve his right.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm very happy to second the recommendations and I wish to reserve my right. Thank you.
Thank you. I invite Councillor Lloyd Bowen to speak, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This could be a very quick evening so far, but perhaps maybe not. I'm a little bit torn on this. I've got nothing against the recommendations whatsoever, and I know we had a conversation about item 4C. I'm disappointed that an option of Swale, Maidstone and Ashford, which was, I think, more of a preferred option for this borough, wasn't necessarily supported to actually progress it to the next stage. We still do have that option if we choose to. There are the costs associated to that, and as been said, when you weigh that up, what's the likelihood of success? That's something for members to think about this evening. I think I know where I, at the moment, stand on that particular item. But I think that's a little bit sad because it is clear that one of the councils involved in this, their eyes are certainly only looking in one direction, and that's certainly not in the direction of Swale or Ashford. Oh, sorry, did I give away which that council that would have been? Bless my soul. Councillor Dolly said this evening in the other room about what we don't know and what residents are thinking, and it's right, we don't. The the implications of on people's council tax, but that's not for discussion tonight. We won't probably know that till way down the line, for maybe a couple of years potentially. But this is a fundamental change in how we operate as a council, as a Swale, or whatever the future holds in terms of democracy in Kent. And at the end of it, the decision won't be made by us. It'll be made by a Secretary of State, whoever that may be. And you can't help but think, slightly political on this one, it'll be in it, what's in it for I element of the government at the time, which is why potentially I wonder some of the Medway option may be looking, what's the one which we're more likely to retain. But that could be something we would want to look at. Wouldn't be my preference, I know that. And one that definitely isn't my preference is the single unitary, a county-wide one, because I just don't see the sense in that. This whole thing's meant to be bringing democracy closer to the public, if possible. Well, that one, in my view, just actually puts it even further away, because you're going to have bigger wards and more population to try and cover it. And I dread to think what the meetings would be like if that were to be the case. So I'm fully supportive at this point of the recommendations of a 3A, 4B option. I think 4 is better for us personally, but would be interested to see how the other options go forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. Before I invite Councillor Baldock to speak, I'm not sure if I said it before, but for those that didn't attend, there was a briefing for all members prior to this meeting where there were a lot of questions asked, as Councillor Bowen had mentioned the meeting. I invite Councillor Baldock to speak, please. Councillor Baldock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not very good at it, but I do like to play chess sometimes. And I think there's a move in chess called something like Zugzwang, where whatever you do, you put yourself in a losing position. And that's where we are. We all know that this totally undemocratic process is being foisted upon us. We talk about engaging with residents. What do the public want? What's their preferred options? They've had zero input into this really so far, just like us. We go to leaders' meetings, we talk. Our favoured option didn't go through. There are machinations outside of a democratic process that we here talk about, that we suspect are going on, which are basically that, as the previous speaker alluded to, this will be a political decision made for the benefit of the governing party at Westminster. We are asked to spend money to take part in the charade, but gives it a veneer of democracy and respectability. We spend time and officers' money. We look at pros and cons. A little bit of pro, massive load of cons. And then we're supposed to rubber stamp and give it the legitimacy it seeks. We have two options, neither of them good. One of them far better than the other. I actually like the Swale Ashford Folkestone model. It was the model I started off proposing. Obviously not as good as Swale standing on its own, but when you've got to choose between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, one's red, one's blue. At least half of you can decide then. I think that model is better. I think there is a case for considering can we spend the money to see how the Swale Ashford Maidstone model stacks up. If it doesn't stack up, maybe we don't submit it. But then you'll get the argument, well, if we're doing that, we're not really behind Swale Ashford and Folkestone. So that'll be another little argument in favour of the other option. Swale aren't really in favour of Swale Ashford Folkestone, so let's go with our monstrosity of the Greater Medway option. So whatever we do tonight, we can't win. We can't try and get a last-minute penalty, because I haven't got a metaphor for that, but we can't even argue for what we want,
Council.
because that might undermine us. So Vote as you choose.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. I invite Councillor Hannah Perkin to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and you'll be unsurprised that I agree with a fair amount of what Councillor Baldock just said. So local government reorganisation is often badged as a solution to government inefficiency. There'll be fewer councils, there'll be less duplication, there'll be more savings. But there are some major reservations with that. Whilst there may be financial savings in the short term, they come at the cost of democratic representation. Fewer councillors means fewer opportunities for residents to engage with elected representatives that are elected to serve them. It weakens scrutiny, undermines transparency and risks concentrating power in fewer and fewer hands. The changes that we are having to go through are top-down, and public engagement has been next to non-existent. And the people we represent deserve to be deeply involved in things that really impact the services they use. I'm thankful to the leader and the chief executive for their open approach to cross-party discussions, something that I know other opposition parties have not had access to elsewhere. In Faversham, 900 residents filled in the town council's survey about their sense of place. Overwhelmingly, they said they looked east towards Canterbury. Very few spoke about Maidstone, and next to zero mentioned Folkestone and Hythe. I feel like the options on the table going forward don't reflect what Faversham residents want from local government reorganisation, and that the options going forward have been chosen by a small group of politicians deciding who they want to work for and not what is particularly better for the residents. This puts me in an unenviable position of not wanting to support the recommendation, but also not wanting to support the alternative, which commits the council to spending money that we don't have on something that might not have any political backing elsewhere in Kent. I'll listen to the debate with interest because, frankly, this feels like it is being done to us, and I have rarely felt so disempowered as a local representative than I have during this process. I don't think it's necessary. Too much has been done behind closed doors, and I think the resources that have been committed to it across the county could have been better spent dealing with the rising inequality within our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkin. I invite Councillor Richard Palmer to speak, please.
I won't go on for too long because I think most of what should be covered has been said. I agree with Councillor Perkin. I think there's a big expense being spent, which is money that could be used in better way. The public don't know what's happening. We don't really know what's happening. I appreciate the Chief Executive has visited town and parish councils and tried to enlighten people as much as she can, but I don't think the public want this. Certainly, I don't think any party in this room really wants this engagement, and I don't feel I could really commit to an extra load of money going out of the council when I think the decision is possibly in the balance anyway to how it's going to go. So I would support the recommendations as they are in the report. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. I invite Councillor Gould to speak, please.
Thank you. I don't really have a great deal to add to what's already been said. I can't see the point in spending a large sum of money for an option that is unlikely to progress. And in that situation, we're left with, approve this or not. And it doesn't really feel much of a choice at all. So I will let us move on to making that non-choice as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. Are there any members who wish to speak? Please indicate clearly, because my eyes aren't brilliant tonight. So, Councillor Bonney, I think I saw first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually wasn't going to bother turning up tonight, quite frankly. That's how disengaged I feel in this. A lot of my residents ask, well, what's going on? I think this is a complete and utter waste of money, time and resources for this council and every council in Kent. We should be focusing on what is necessary, delivering our statutory duties. And quite frankly, I think we're taking our eye off the ball. From what I witnessed last week in a planning meeting, we are definitely not on the ball. It was a disgrace. And I think that's what happens when you start looking at all these other things. You end up with a car crash. I have experienced two authorities merging into one. I remember trying to complete a property deal up in Chester some years ago. And in the end, although it was in the best interest of the council, it just fell apart because, quite frankly, everyone ran out of patience. It went on for years. And the bureaucratic processes in the transfer of things like property, etc., meant that those deals which should have benefited the residents, including the redevelopment of a shopping centre, never proceeded. And it's a stark warning as to what we may encounter, because it's not just 5 million or 10 million, it's hundreds of millions of pounds worth of commercial and business opportunities. And it will cause stalemate, not just for the council, but for the businesses that support those, and for the residents who have to endure a quagmire of bureaucratic processes. So what do I think the options are? I think these are appalling options, quite frankly. My residents certainly don't have an affinity to Medway. And I'm kind of minded not to vote for any of the recommendations or to spend any more money, because I do feel very strongly that this is a complete and utter waste of our resources.
Thank you, Councillor Bonney. The next person I saw was Councillor Ben Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think most of what needs to be said has been said, but I think we need to also look at the fact that, you know, we have a partnership agreement with another council who say they don't want to partner with us going forward. That's disappointing. When we sit around a table with someone and look at contracts and look at what we can do and how we can share services, and then when it comes to actually we need to, the government want us to form unitaries, we don't want to work with you. That is disappointing. When you have a neighbouring authority that has a much closer affinity with this area and probably has more in common with us, but doesn't want to work with us, it does feel a bit like we're the last one invited to prom. In terms of the positive, and I do like to try and find a positive, let's face it, none of us want South Thames Estuary Unitary Authority in this room. I'm not going to call it Medway or Greater Medway because it is not a takeover, and it will never be a takeover. But we could, of course, get the combination of the 100 of Scray and the 100 of Shepway. I don't think any of us want to spend £80,000 giving the government an additional option that means that they can ignore all local people and just do what they want. Because the more options that are presented to government, the less likely it is what anyone wants in Kent will actually be what we get. We'll get what a minister wants, whoever that minister may be by that particular week.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Worcester, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to look quickly at two recommendations. The first one was to note the report of the work undertaken so far by Kent leaders and chief executives. So first of all, I wanted to thank those people that have been doing all the work on the basis of this. It's a huge undertaking, and it's certainly not an easy undertaking. And I'd like to also thank the officers that we're giving extra responsibility to behind the scenes to help support all of the data that's being generated, all of the process that's being entered into on our residents' behalf. So thank you very much for that. I also wondered before the vote if we could just go over the second recommendations to make sure we're absolutely clear on what members are voting for, because there's absolutely quite rightly a lot of concern in the community around what Medway are putting out on social media and their website and things like that. A lot of concern around what KCC are doing, and residents are finding it very confusing. It's a very confusing process with a lot of levels and a lot of things going on. So as far as we can be, if we can be as clear as we can, that when people, members of the public, watch this meeting back, we're in the best position to have given them, as far as we can, the clearest information possible. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Worcester. Councillor Paul Stephen, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I don't like the idea of spending £80,000 on something that is not, shall I say, cut and drawn. It's a chance that I don't think we need to. Well, I don't say we don't need to take. I don't like taking it purely because of the amount of money that could be wasted. Secondly, working with areas that aren't keen on working with Swale, I think we've got to rule them out straight away. You know, we've got, apart from obviously the Medway side of it, they want us, but we don't really want them. I get that's the feeling amongst us. Then we've got Ashford, who didn't mind, quite happy with it, and we've had no objection from Folkestone either. We've got then 2 partners there that are happy to work with. Okay, this is a game we went into that we couldn't win, but it's not a game we want to lose. The best we can get out of this is a draw. And I think the draw is going to be 4B. We're working with people that want us, and we want them. Okay, it might not be our first choice. If it was, we'd win, but we're not going to win. So I think we should go for 4B. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen. Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have been here before. We worked for well over a year. We had lots of money in those days, and we did spend a lot of money on LGR. We consulted left, right and centre. We were the only one of the 14 at the time borough and district councils in the whole of Kent who had, number 1, a majority of councillors, number 2, a majority of the public, and number 3, a majority of the local businesses who wanted Swale to be a unitary authority. And others. So we all put this up to government. And government said, no, I don't agree with any of them. Here's what I want for Kent. Go back and make it happen. That's how we ended up with Medway. So we can do all the work in the world. We can get people on board. You know, we could spend every halfpenny. It ain't going to make a blind bit of difference. My personal view, now it's not what we're here for tonight, we're just saying, look, there's 2 options. Are we happy that we get behind what the majority came up with? And unfortunately, that's the way these things work. When we have a vote in this chamber, the majority wins. Now, the leaders have had a vote, and the majority have said, look, there's 2 options. So those are the 2 that I'm comfortable going with. My preference is for 4 unitaries, and if that's what we get, we will make the best of it. I think it could work, but that's not what we're here for tonight. What we're here for tonight is to say, do we want to get behind this? And, because not get behind it, because there's already been, it's already on the table. But do we also want to spend 80k? No, I don't. It'd be a waste of money. Whatever comes out after the 28th of, well, once the full business case comes forward, we might decide that actually there is only one option on the table. Hopefully it's one that we can all get behind. But, you know, the decision tonight is not whether we fancy Medway or Canterbury or Thanet or anybody else. It's do we want to spend 80k doing our own, and it won't go through because you won't get the support, or do we want to sort of go with the ones that are on the table? I also, as an aside, were quite concerned really that this partnership that we have been in for quite a number of years, one of them clearly don't like us, doesn't like our borough. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I don't normally ask, but I will on this occasion. Are there any other members that wish to speak? If you'd like to indicate now, otherwise I will go to Councillor Wise as he reserved his right. Anybody else? Going. Councillor Wise, you reserved your right. I'd like you to speak now, if you may. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I thank members for all their contributions and for the engagement that group leaders have given throughout this process. I know it's not been easy, and I think we'd all agree that we'd much rather there was far greater public engagement. That definitely would have been desirable, and personally I think it does a disservice to this process, because if there are merits to having unitary councils, we should have been exploring those more with the public before the rush to have to come up with geographies. I don't think that was the right way, personally, that this process should have been undertaken. But I thank Councillor Paul Stephen in particular for the common sense way that you've put your case forward, and I'm in total agreement with your words, because and it's a point that others have made here tonight as well, the concern is, if we don't get behind these recommendations, is that the process moves without us. We are totally squeezed out of at that point, and none of our preferences will go forward at all, and our voice will no longer be there. So I will be supporting the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wise. Councillor Tim Gibson, as the proposer of the motion, do you wish to sum up the debate?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. And I'd like to start by paying tribute to our Chief Executive, actually, for the sterling work that she's done on our behalf. And she was volunteered for that role. And I'll put my hands up and say it was me that volunteered her. And she has worked tirelessly for it. I also pay tribute to all my fellow leaders for the meetings that we've had and for the candid and frank exchanges. And whilst we don't always agree on things, we come to a consensus. And that consensus, as we know, was neither of those two options on the table this evening. I think all of the speakers have said things that I would personally reflect. And again, in line with Councillor Wise, I would say Councillor Stevens' input tonight has been excellent. I think you really hit the nail on the head and got hit the money there. So thank you for that. Thank you all for your contributions, and thank you, Madam Mayor, for putting up with my summing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I'd like to ask members in attendance to state their vote by show of hands. All those in favour, please raise your hand clearly. All those against, please raise your hand. And are there any abstentions, please? Thank you, members. That is carried. I appreciate you all coming out for this extraordinary meeting. I'm going to close the meeting now, but I'd like to say a thank you to all of you for coming out tonight. I have got refreshments available in the parlour, but I will understand if you all want to run out the door. So thank you very much, members. I close the meeting at 7:30.